are your thoughts on Rhaenyra seeing the white hart while Viserys saw the brown stag? So, I mean, this stuff is steeped in symbolism and mythology. So I did a little bit of research on the white hart, which is a stag, H-A-R-T.
Right.
It's an old word for stag, and also on boars. I will preface this with, it's standard internet research. I'm not a Arthurian scholar, number one.
I mean, you're almost.
Yeah, sort of.
You're basically a medieval scholar.
I
so
just
sure.
mean I didn't dig into this like I would for a paper. But at one point I was like...
But having the advanced art history degree, it gives you a certain...
I did find myself at one point being like, I need to find a second source to back this up. But then I was like, Maggie, no, you literally don't. You can just say, allegedly. It's not a paper. I'll also say I only focused on Western European history and mythology because that is what George R. R. Martin is basing his stories on.
Totally.
Just FYI. So the white hart is really steeped in mythology and symbolism over time. In ancient Celtic mythology, they represented messengers from the other world or from the afterlife because of their
The pig was a messenger?
No, the hart, the white hart.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about stags right now.
I'm a big fan of the pigs.
I know you are.
Okay.
We'll get to the pigs. We're talking about the stag right now. They're messengers from the other world because of like their ghostly appearance, or they will appear when one is transgressing a taboo or is breaking a law. It's a signal that someone has done something wrong. So, in this episode, the white hart is spotted by the people on the hunt, and so they're trying to catch it. And then Rhaenyra also sees it. So perhaps the transgression here is that, you could interpret it a lot of ways. It could be Viserys named a girl his heir, and that's a transgression. That's bad.
Sure.
It could be that he is thinking of betraying his daughter and naming Aegon his new heir, which would also be
when
bad.
He publicly swore that in front of all the lords of the realm.
Right, yeah. Or it could be that he is going to marry his daughter off, and that...
To a 2-year-old.
Yeah, and...
Yeah, we'll get to incest watch in a second.
So, again... all of the stuff I'm about to mention, none of it is like clear X equals Y. Like it's all very I don't know, but it's interesting to think about. In English folklore, so beyond the Celts, it is the white hart is often associated with Herne the Hunter. So Herne Herne appears in the Merry Wives of Windsor, which I haven't read, but apparently shows up there. Thanks, good old Willie Shakes. But so Herne the Hunter is like this ghost who appears in Windsor Forest, and he often appears in the form of a stag, or at least has the antlers of a stag. It's said that he was invented to scare like children into obedience, which is interesting when you think about Viserys not being able to control his daughter or get her to do what he wants her to do.
And he screams that during this episode.
Exactly. So that's something. There's a 1792 version of the story where it's this ghost of a man who, having committed some great offense for which he feared to lose his situation and fall into disgrace, was induced to hang himself on this tree. So I don't know if because we've talked about how we don't think Viserys is going to survive this season.
Last week we debated whether or not he's going to survive the time jump.
Literally. So, is he going... at first I thought he was going to die from some kind of illness or some kind of conflict, but I wonder if he will die at his own hand. I don't know. That's interesting to think about.
I have something on that.
Sure.
So, yeah, this is like a mild... It's still connected to what you're saying.
That's fine. Go for it.
So this... I think the most compelling, this is a part of history that we have to include in this episode, is where Viserys, and I mean the episode of the TV, not the podcast.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
When Viserys is talking to Rhaenyra and he says, "Oh no, yeah, I may have wavered for a second, but I'm staring at you right in the eyes and I'm telling you, you are my heir and you will continue to be my heir." Mm-hmm. And my question was, okay, but this is a Targaryen civil war. Mm-hmm. So what goes sideways? Right. The answer will be Daemon. But for right now, we don't know.
Right.
And we see the seeds of what is going to ruin that plan. Mm-hmm. It's either the Hightowers, because we see Alicent talking to her dad, who set up this entire...
They are trying so hard to get him to name Aegon. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's either the Hightowers go all in on young Aegon when he comes of age, and then Viserys dies, and they try to just swoop in and do a coup at that point.
Yeah, or kill Rhaenyra or something.
But either way, this whole Targaryen civil war, this thing that's coming, will happen when Viserys dies. Like Viserys will either be murdered, like you just said, he could kill himself, or there could be some natural death brewing. We have the infection from all of these injuries. The fingers are gone.
Right.
We see him, I mean, he's like a fully fledged alcoholic in this episode.
Yeah, it's not good.
So he's absolutely deteriorating. But I agree that is, if it's not the inciting incident, it's the next one.
Right. Like that's a really great point. There's something going on. Also important to think about horns, especially to like an Elizabethan audience, can symbolize a cuckold, somebody who's been cheated on. So
interesting.
Maybe Alicent is going to be unfaithful. Maybe something with Rhaenyra will cause it. Like, I don't know, something going on.
The discussion that Rhaenyra and Viserys have in this episode about him remarrying has sort of a cuckoldry energy to it. When he says, well, you have to get married. It's what your duty is. You have to get, and she throws back in his face if you had done a political marriage, you would have married Corlys's daughter instead of my best friend.
Yep.
But that sort of betrayal and intrusion has almost that cuckolding sort of a perverse intimacy to it.
Exactly.
Violation is what I'm looking for. That's the word.
Yeah, exactly. And so continuing on the English folklore path, if we dip into Arthurian legend, which is its own thing, I believe there is an incident, I should know this because I read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight last fall.
Oh, right, for the movie.
I believe there is a hunt for a stag, if not a white stag. I think there's also a hunt for a boar. I mean, the main point is that it's meant to be like a reflection of the way that mistress is hunting Gawain and tempting him and stuff, but that's a whole other discussion.
That was a good movie. Go listen to our episode.
It was really good. But so the pursuit of a white stag in Arthurian legend often represents man's spiritual quest for purity, for glory, for salvation. The white stag is this thing that can never be caught. It's like this fantastical fairy beast that is forever elusive and cannot be caught, but it's about the pursuit of like the unattainable and striving to be pure and holy and everything, but never quite being able to achieve it. Makes sense with Viserys's desire to be a great king, and he just can't be, because he can't please his daughter and the realm and himself all at once. Like, it's impossible. And also in Arthurian legend, there was like this one story where like every Easter these knights would hunt this white stag, and anybody who caught it would be able to bestow a kiss on any noblewoman at court, which makes you think about the way that Viserys is essentially trying to pimp out Rhaenyra. So that's really fun and gross. In Arthurian legend, the white hart could also signal a coming change or magical event. I mean, that makes sense. We're about to experience a big change, I assume, with Viserys dying, with Daemon coming in, with Rhaenyra rebel.
Someone's got to be king.
There's some big thing coming. It's very clear. So there's that. And also in Arthurian legend, the white hart signaled the beginning of Arthur's reign. So I wonder if that is the fact that Viserys never sees the white hart, at least we don't see him see it, but Rhaenyra does see it, could tell us that it is signaling the start of her reign as queen.
In the same way her killing the boar is an omen in its comparison to Robert Baratheon.
Yes.
Her getting that little spiritual endorsement of the happy omen coming to visit her. Yeah, that's what I had in my notes that you just kind of pivoted off for all that historical stuff.
Sure.
Was these sort of twin omens that are coming back. One from the history of this show and Game of Thrones, and the other from actual European history.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. And then in Christianity specifically, the white stag is associated with Saint Eustace, who saw this vision of Christ between the antlers of a white stag. Like, they kind of became a cross, and he immediately converted to Christianity. And then he became a martyr and all this stuff, and had to deal with, I think his family was murdered and some other terrible Job-like trials and tribulations. And he was this martyr in the Christian faith. So